Securing our borders should be the top priority of immigration reform before dealing with all the internal issues. The question oversimplifies the issue. Even if it was possible to secure our border with Mexico, the real problems which would have attracted people and attracted our attention to the border will remain. Treating the symptoms does not cure. One must deal with and get to the root causes. The border's not the issue, yet the border is where the issues all collide. Got to go back and do some historical thinking. The outcome of the illegal U.S. invasion of Mexico in the 1840s led to a vast expansion of U.S. territory. The gold rush in California and eventual oil exploration in Texas. Settlers from the east pushed west and expanded the boundaries of our young country, where they found new land, work, and eventual prosperity. Now here we are in 2011, and we're debating the question of securing our border. And this line, it's moved around. If we recall, before the invasion of Mexico, California, Texas, Arizona, New Mexico, Colorado was Mexico. Now, that's historical, but there are roots to how Mexicans look at this land that go way, way back, and I think it's important that we have that context. So 2 points. No matter how high a wall, how sophisticated the technology, how large the border patrol, people will continue to cross from Mexico into the United States. The push and the pull are too great. The internal issues are inherently tied to issues across the globe. We are not the only country with an immigration issue. Labor is moving. I lost my place. The world economy is global, and laborers will migrate to find work. Survival is stronger than borders. And the second point is the costs of border enforcement are too great on many, many levels. So let's go back and do a little history. 1848, Guadalupe Hidalgo Treaty. The United States created a 1,969-mile border with Mexico, crossing 2 rivers, desert, and mountains. Interestingly enough, about the same time, we finished our border with Canada. We're going to focus on Mexico. That's plenty for the moment. Okay. In 1840s, we were in a situation not so unlike right now. The total population of the United States was about 17 million, and immigrants were about 1,500,000. Secret societies were started to protest this invasion of immigrants. The labor movement was growing, won the 10-hour workday, Chicago Board of Trade started. We were shifting from an agricultural to an industrial society. What are we doing now? We're going from a national to a multinational to a transnational global economy. Labor is moving to address and answer this issue. So we have to deal with what's that mean for us. Immigrants were unwanted, and we treated them terribly. The people that were here didn't necessarily welcome all of them. Okay, through the decades, Mexicans crossed the border into the United States to work in agriculture and manual labor. Some people returned to their homes in the evening. Others returned after the harvest seasons. The border was porous, and the relationship was more or less friendly, productive for both the migrants and the businesses or the families who hired the domestic help, yard workers, nannies. Some people stayed, gained status and citizenship, and now they're cabinet members, Supreme Court judges, and business leaders. The current situation, in addition to the change in immigration law, which we could go into step by step, the biggest issue for current situation is the North American Free Trade Agreement, NAFTA, 1994, and the Dominican Republic Central America Free Trade Agreement, 2003-4-5. So other free trade agreements. And preceding those trade agreements, the immigration laws changed, closing the border to the people going back and forth, lowering the quotas for people who could get visas to come and work, and just making the whole situation much more punitive. At the same time, Mexican farmers began to lose their land as agribusiness becomes the choice for how to do business in Mexico. There are maquiladores, assembly plants are throughout Mexico and especially on the border. This was supposed to be the safety valve. That's where the workers who were going to lose their land to agribusiness, that's where they were going to work. But there were not enough jobs. And as the cost of business in the assembly plant grew, people left and went to Indonesia, went to China, went to other places. To try to understand the impact, the Post-Dispatch had an article this past Sunday that said that 2 million Mexicans lost their land since 1994. 1.3 million people in the United States have been foreclosed. So it's even more than that. And the difference between losing your house, which is horrible and tragic, losing your land, you lose your livelihood. You lose your culture. You lose the roots of who you are. The per capita differential between the United States, which is about 30,000, and Mexico, which is less than 4,000, what would you do? There's a pull, and there's a push. Okay, let's talk about the costs. Okay, one thing, the closed border, which is what happened after the 1996 immigration reform, closed the border. So it's keeping people in rather than letting people go back and forth. This has increased the immigrant population from Mexico in the United States. Now, another result, another cost of the closed border is hundreds of people are dying in the desert. You've basically closed the areas where people used to cross, which were much more populated. So you're forcing people to go into the desert, going into places where they cannot cross easily. And we've had about 5,000 deaths in the desert since the 90s. It's about 500, 600 a year. There have been 40 deaths from October to December of last year. So, you're right. There are dangerous things are happening at the closed border. You've got crime, you've got violence, and drug trafficking, all of those things. Yes, indeed, we have them. And the response has been to fund the corrupt military and police in Mexico, which then sends it to organized crime, it seems. So, the closed border has spawned an ever more lucrative human trafficking business. The closed border has led to costly detention. There are about 32,000 immigrants in detention on a given day to a cost of about $1.7 billion. Last year we deported, what's the number? 393,000 people to the tune of, thank you, $12,500 per person. The border wall. It was $10 million a mile, so we spent $2.4 billion so far, and now we've stopped doing the Boeing virtual fence, to which we spent $1 billion for 53 miles of virtual fence. And the Border Patrol is $2.9 billion. So securing the border before dealing with all the causal issues is walking without looking or listening. We cannot afford the policy financially, morally, politically, or socially. It's time to look at the causes and find solutions which benefit all parties.